Welcome back, everyone, to MBA Unplugged, the greatest financial literacy / entrepreneurial podcast on the planet. I know today you don't see my co-host, but he's all right, just out of town. It's very unfortunate because we have some very special guests today. My name is Liam Wong, and these special guests are large players within the retail industry in Georgia. You may have heard of them, Big Peach Running Co., also known as BPRC. Mike Costantino founded BPRC in 2004, around 20 years ago, but has built this niche of physical wellness and activity to over 12 locations in Georgia. BPRC specializes in footwear and physical activity, and they have an entire procedure called Fit Process, where they analyze your foot dimensions and match you with the perfect shoe. In addition, they host marathons, special events, and social runs backed by a strong, loyal community. In addition, we are joined by Rick and Dawn Ross, an amazing duo who has opened the first Black-owned store for BPRC in Georgia. Let's dive deeper into what it takes to go from ideation to full execution. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Thanks,
Good.
Great. How has business been recently, just in the last couple of years?
So if we look at the last couple of years, I mean, it's been quite a ride since what we would all say is that global pandemic, right? For a while, there was this tremendous uncertainty. And then we come out of what was tremendous uncertainty to just it was incredible opportunity, both from an exercise and fitness perspective as people were more mindful of wellness, more mindful of taking care of themselves. And the products that we have, footwear you already mentioned, Liam, incredibly important for that. But there was also this, what we kind of call comfort-seeking population, where people were working from home. People were getting a greater choice of what they would put on their feet because they could run their errands during the day. They maybe were part of that, let's go out and get a puppy craze, and now they had this dog that they needed to let out a few times every single day, and the most comfortable way to do it was a pair of shoes. So we had this, kind of rocket ship ride on sales volume in 21 and 22, and then it starts to plateau and level out a little bit. Now, as we, are on, I don't want to, timestamp this too much, but as we're on the precipice of going into 2025, we're seeing, runners and walkers come back to that, where it's not just general fitness. Certainly that's still healthy. It's not just comfort seekers. Yes, there are some people that are still wearing the types of shoes that we sell in the office or around the house. But now, I think next year, for those who are in and around Atlanta, I think the AJC Peachtree Road Race will be back to being a full pool at 60,000 runners. Rick, Dawn, and I, we talk to race directors, whether they're inside the perimeter or outside in some of the further reaches where we have a store. Those communities are seeing local 5Ks that have participants that are above what they saw even pre-pandemic. So I feel really good about where we're headed in the next few years.
Absolutely. I don't want to disclude you guys, but I also kind of want to dig deeper into the process of, first of all, building BPRC to where it is, and also the ideation piece, because I know that you've seen demand for pedestrian walking and running shoes needed in Georgia here. So how did that kind of look like for you? And then expanding over and allowing other locations to expand, and then of course getting Black-owned stores in place.
So in terms of the demand, and if we look back, Atlanta, where our business was born, has always been a tremendous place to be a runner or a walker. We said from the onset that we weren't here to invent a lifestyle. It was already incredibly healthy. What we came in to do was serve a lifestyle to the greatest degree that we possibly could. And it wasn't just about our selection. It wasn't just about a tremendous community to be able to do it. It was also about bringing service to the forefront. People oftentimes will say, well, man, you must be a huge runner if you're going to be in the running industry or you're going to have a running store. And the truth is, my passion was about retail. Yes, my personal interest very much about running. Along with this crew who's with me, we've run a ton of miles, recently and historically. But if you're a runner, but you don't have that desire to serve others, to be in retail where you're offering a proposition beyond just the product, you're not going to be able to get through those first few years, and certainly you're not going to have the good fortune of doing some of the things that we're here to talk about. And now that 20 years later, we're still doing with just as much glee that we were doing it the first few weeks that we were open.
No, absolutely, and I'd love to know how you guys got connected with one another. What does that story look like?
Oh, wow. So Dawn and I moved from Charlotte back to Atlanta, and I spent 37 years in the entertainment industry as a record company executive. And but I've always ran. So as I lived in Charlotte, I probably didn't run as much as I did before I moved to Charlotte, just because of the demand of the job. So when I moved back here, I was actually on lunch break, and I just so happened to run across this store, Big Peach. I went in while I met Mike. Felt like we've known each other for years, and I started buying all of my shoes there. So going from a customer to a friend to a business partner has been like a 20-year journey. Several years ago, as I was winding down my career in the entertainment industry, Mike and I started really having some different conversations. I think it kind of really just met the road during the whole George Floyd situation. And we just really had some really tough, hard conversations about the state of what was going on. And it was just hit a whole nother level in our friendship. And then, I told him, I said, I'm leaving, the entertainment industry. Running has always been parallel to me in the music industry. It's always been there. My friends they think I'm crazy because, I am a runner. This is a lifestyle for me. And I wanted to pick up another one of my passions, which was running, and how could I have an impact in this space? And it was by opening up this store. So, of course, I had to go to my business partner, my wife, and lay this crazy idea on her that, hey,
you want to run.
I want to run, and I really want to run.
But you want to run to the bank too. You want to run to the bank too.
Right, exactly. So, Mike and I got together, and we started, figuring out what does this look like. I had no idea of the magnitude and the impact that we were going to have in this business, and we didn't even open yet. But just by being the first Black-owned, specialty running store in the state, was not even a thought of mine. It was like, this is a passion of mine. We want to open up this store. Wasn't until Mike and I and Dawn, we started talking, and we started really getting more involved in this industry, that there's only less than 4% of Black ownership in this space. We're one of less than 10 stores in the country. So to me, it's like, oh wow, this is something that
It's unique.
is unique.
It's unique.
Yeah.
You said something that was really interesting. And for people that don't know me, I'm Professor Young. So I'm filling in for Charles today, which is, I guess those are big shoes to fill. So if you see Charles on the other podcast, you'll understand why. So I don't want to bore anybody here. But you touched on something that's really, it resonates with me, the George Floyd issue. And what kind of conversations did you, and this is not even about business now, what kind of conversation did you have with Mike, or did you guys have together? I mean, I like to hear that conversation, because I think there were a lot of conversations going on in the United States. Obviously, a lot of conversations going on today, obviously what happened Tuesday night. So people are worried for obvious reasons. We don't want to go backwards.
Yeah.
So what was that conversation like?
Well, and Mike, you chime in, but it really, we talked about, of course, the situation, and I gave him my perspective as a Black man, how that feels to being pulled over by police. My job for 37 years was driving throughout the country, all times of the day and night, and never knowing if I'm going to make it home, because I have artists in the car with me. You're seeing all these Black men riding up and down these dark roads of the Carolinas and places, and it never really dawned on me that I could have been pulled over. Anything could have happened. This was really before, everybody had cell phones and all this thing, all this technology that we have. I could have really got missing, and my wife would have never known.
Sure.
So, we started talking about that, and how it had an impact, how that really had an impact on us. I mean, we even got to a point where, we started talking about Dr. King's letter that he, wrote from the, Birmingham jail. So it was some real conversations that I've never had
Right.
with somebody
hard
else.
conversation.
Yeah,
that
with
need to
somebody
happen.
that wasn't
Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
But because of our relationship, it wasn't like I had
Yeah.
to hold back or anything. Mike's very open guy, and we were able to have that candid conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Let me also too. I had that same conversation with a good friend of mine. He called me like the next day. He said, "Man, we got to talk," and it kind of took me aback because I didn't know. I just never had anyone that wasn't black approach me that way.
Right.
But what it did, two things it did. It made me step up and be honest and be transparent, and two, it helped him just address some of the issues, stereotypes that he's heard, whatever the case is. But number three, the biggest thing is it brought us closer. So to your point,
Yeah.
but Mike, I want to talk a little bit about you and your background, how you started. It'd be interesting because a lot of students want to start businesses right out the gates. We'll get onto your journey as well. Tell us a little bit about where you started, where you from, where you started, and how did you get the Big Peach concept? Because I ran into Big Peach. I'm a runner, and I live in downtown Decatur, and I went to I don't know if that was one of your first stores or not.
It was our fourth store.
It was
That's
it was
exactly
right near the courthouse, and I went there on a Sunday, and I'll never forget this. I saw a sign saying we're closed, we're out running, and I thought that was the coolest slogan I'd ever seen. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
So I got to Atlanta in 1994. I came to take a position with the Atlanta Braves. I had just gotten my master's in sports administration. Little trivia that we won't hold back on our listeners, but who won the World Series? Liam, I'll start with you because you probably weren't even around.
No.
And who won the World Series in
2006,
1994?
2006.
Oh, Professor Young is thinking about it.
I'm trying to think.
I can already tell.
It wasn't the Cubs. That's for
It was
sure.
not the Cubbies, and it wasn't the Braves. Here's the reason it's a great trivia question is because there was no World Series winner. Right, that was the strike year,
that's right.
and the
That's right.
season was never finished. So when you're in the front office of a Major League Baseball team and there's no product on the field, what usually happens, right? Everybody goes on furlough, and that's kind of the end of that. The good news for somebody in sports marketing was there was a pretty big production coming to town relatively soon thereafter called the 1996 Olympic Games. And so I went kind of from professional sport to amateur sport and ended up working in an agency that did work for the Coca-Cola Company, among other Olympic sponsors, and did that for a couple of years. But unlike the Braves, that of course are still here, the 1996 Olympic Games came and went.
That's right.
In 2000, of course, off they went to Australia, and they keep moving around. So once again, I had kind of found myself without this sports property to be able to just really connect to. The same thing that I know all of your students can connect with, when you do good work, when you pour yourself not only in to what's in it for you, but what's in it for others, and you're delivering value on a regular basis. And so I had the good fortune of being asked to come over to what at the time was the client side and work for the Coca-Cola Company. I did that for 7 years, and candidly, there were so many great experiences. And to your point about starting a business, I would not have been qualified to start that business without that time at the agency, without that time at Coke, where I just learned so much about so many different things. And the thing maybe I learned the most about was retail. I worked with a lot of really good retailers. I worked with Home Depot, whose logo we see here in the studio. I worked with, grocery retailers. I worked with international retailers. And the thing that geeked me out, why do people shop where they shop? Why do people buy what they buy? What makes them tell a friend, you should go here or you should try this? What is it makes them decide, I wouldn't do that again. I wouldn't buy that again. And that was just the thing that, from a professional consideration was far more interesting to me than sports marketing.
Gotcha.
And so it was this intersection eventually where I was like, I want to be in retail, but if I really want to be in retail, I want it to be where I have more control about what the service proposition looks like, what the merchandising looks like, what we talk about in terms of our priorities would look like. So my passion, and like I mentioned earlier, yes, I love to run, but the passion is the retail, the hospitality, the guest services. And that's where all of a sudden you have friends like this that share that. Yeah, it's super cool that Rick and I can both talk about running 100 miles, but what's even better is a conversation the three of us would have about how do we tweak that service proposition in the first week you're open to be even better than any other store we've opened before.
That's cool. What about you, Rick? What's your story?
Born and raised in Atlanta.
Okay.
This is home.
You Grady baby?
I'm a Grady baby.
There you go.
Grew up in a house with music, my dad, and was always doing something with music, but didn't know it at that same time. My mom told me, she said, boy, you used to run out the house and you would just run around the project. Like, I didn't know. So I've always had this thing for running. Wasn't that good in school, but I ran. I played soccer, but running has always been there. So it's always been music and running. So when I entered took my first job at Warner Brothers Records, which is another division, Reprise Records, which is a label that was started by Frank Sinatra. They moved me to Charlotte, and that's where I kind of made my bones and stuff. And Dawn and I moved there. She was, working in banking, and running has always been there. It's always been a passion. So as we moved back to Atlanta, I started, really started running more races and 5Ks and half marathons and ultras and all this stuff. But it's just always been there. So as Mike and I started having these conversations and Dawn, I was like, I really want to be in that space. One, because we've never had that in the black community.
That's very true.
We've never had a specialty running store that you can go in, be fitted, get information, learn about, the fit process, what's good for your feet. I used to run in actually tennis shoes, so we never had that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to get that from a Foot Locker or any of these other outlets. So for me, it was all about community. This store is not just a store that's going to just be selling product. This is a store that's going to be giving information to an underserved community. And we have a lot of black runners, as you mentioned earlier. We have a lot of black runners in the city of Atlanta and also in South Fulton.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to create that atmosphere for people who run and for those who don't.
That's right.
We have been very strategic on how we are even with our signage.
Mm-hmm.
It just won't say running, it'll say run walk, because most people that come to me would say, I don't run. Well, you walk and you still need a good shoe
Yep.
to put on. So talking with Mike, talking with Dawn, who is the numbers person in the house, and making sure that we can do this project. And it was important. I had to write the business plan. Mike and I, Dawn and Donald Lamar from the SBA, we had to sit down, we had to make sure that these numbers were right.
That makes sense.
It had to make sense. It had to make, even though me and Mike are friends, but he's still, we had to sit down and say, hey, can we make this work? What does the business look like? And so Dawn and I are learning, but we have a great partner, we have a great system, and a great support. And for Dawn and I, being a part of the Big Peach family has been incredible. We're learning a lot on how to run this business, and it is a unique situation, and people don't understand the franchise model, because when we're talking about it and I tell them about the store, they're like, well, how does that work?
That's right.
So we have to explain to them this is a franchise,
Mm-hmm.
and so learning and sharing that knowledge to our community for them to understand. So there's no you see Chick-fil-A's, you see people running Chick-fil-A's and all these other. I say that's a franchise.
That's a franchise.
So just getting people to understand that. But what I will say is that the demand for what we're bringing to our community is incredible.
Yep.
I mean, we have been getting calls from all over the country about this store and about this relationship, because it's like you said, it's a unique relationship. It's
unique.
It's
But I
good.
think the big thing, as you mentioned too, though, that the space being, in terms of specialty shoes for runners, there's a tendency, I can speak on this, in the black community, we can all agree with this. If we are going to go into business, franchise is usually food.
Right.
You know,
Right.
we over dominate that.
Right.
Okay, we know we can cook. So when I saw this, I was like, okay, that is that's real unique. Because I was like, because I'm a runner. When I was here, I used to run when I was here at Morehouse. That's 84 to 88. Probably I've told everybody how old I am, right?
That's okay. I'm 84.
And my roommate, I used to run. I had, I think the old Tigers or A6 or whatever they said. And my roommate bought me these. Oh, I got better socks for you. He was from New York. I got better socks for you. He brought me my first Bill Rogers socks, the real thin socks. So I remember. But I couldn't find them.
Right.
So when you find, so this space to me is like, this is really a unique space, but it's a space where there's a huge demand.
Exactly.
Demand. So,
Exactly. Thank you for bringing that up, Professor Young. You know, I just want to talk about two things. I think, first of all, it's the type of impact that you guys are creating, especially as Black business owners. And then second of all, Dawn, I know you guys talked about the relationship between this business. How important has it been for you to be able to overcome these challenges with your partner, be able to build something so beautiful and impact so many lives?
Well, I'll start off and say that it's a partnership, definitely. It's been amazing. Rick and I have worked together on a lot of things together. We run a nonprofit called the Music Education Group, and which I'm the CFO. I'm the numbers person. So we both started that over 23 years ago. So we've always worked together. It's always worked for us. You know, of course, you have disagreements, but at, the end of the day, it's about service for us. We've committed our lives to serving others. And it started years ago. So this was just perfect. I mean, even though, you come in and you get a product, we're going to offer you a fantastic experience that goes along with that. You're not just going to walk in and say, hey, give me those shoes and goodbye. No, we're going to greet you like your family. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure that you are pleased with what we offer. And, we're going to have several things that go on within the store. We're going to have social events where we can get to know the community. Because for us, it's about our community. We live in the community, which our store is. It's 9 minutes from where we live is the store.
Wow.
So we live in that area.
So you're in the community.
We're in the community, and we serve within our community. Every year we also, for our nonprofit, we have a big Christmas event. We volunteer for Thanksgiving giveaways,
Yep.
Hosea Feed Them, we do all of that. So we're in the community, so we're getting to know what our neighbors want, what they demand, and it's been great.
Right.
Like I said, we're in the store sometimes, and people will just open the door and say, when are y'all opening? We're so glad that you're here.
Yeah.
And it's funny that, like when Rick said, we're getting calls from all over the country. When the newsletter went out, I received an email from a gentleman I haven't spoken to in 14 years and say, look, I pulled up my computer and there you were. So it's everywhere,
That's
and
right.
everyone is happy. When they say location, 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 that's true.
Yep.
For us, in that area, was nothing like it. So the demand is there, and we're so excited.
Absolutely. Just a quick question. Does it make sense to expand? Because I know you guys are very centered around that familial type of customer service that you guys provide. So if you expand, maybe even outside of Georgia, do you think that kind of like makes sense from PPRC, at least from like your
I think.
So the short answer, in my opinion, would be, possibly, right? First steps first. And yet at the same time, I think in fact, Dawn just said, in terms of the way we serve, we can build systems around that, and we can build a team that understands how to make that come together. The thing that was said earlier about the demand, if we look beyond that and we look at the opportunity, here's the thing, and it was mentioned earlier with George Floyd, and I think the honesty, candidly, that you had with your friend. Now, for me, I felt, as a white person, a license to talk about things that I may not say it the right way, I may not look completely comfortable in asking a question, but all of a sudden it was like, oh my goodness, we've got the opportunity to have conversations, right? So, yeah, okay, there's demand. Black people like to run. Great, awesome, understood. But you know what is also true, and that came out during COVID, Black people, higher predisposition to a variety of things that candidly, we don't need science to tell us would potentially be benefited by taking more steps, being in more comfortable footwear. So of all the people who come running through the doors, we're glad you're here because they already run the Peachtree Road Race. That's awesome. We're going to take amazing care of them. And you think about the team that they're going to have and the service proposition they're going to deliver, that's super cool. But the type of person who is now not intimidated but inspired to have a conversation with Rick or Dawn, because they wouldn't have had that conversation with a stranger, or they wouldn't have driven to Swanee, Georgia to have that conversation. But they know, you know what, I've neglected my fitness for the last 5 years, the last 5 decades, for my entire life. And I can't keep doing that.
Yeah.
That's the person. That's the person
That's right.
who we're more
That's right.
excited to have an opportunity to converse with.
That's right.
And then that's where the expansion comes from. It's not the person that the built-in demand is already there.
And that's a sweet spot too. I see it, and I feel your passion because my hair is just standing up on my arms right now because I truly believe that. It's not just about the community. It's about making money. Obviously, we're in business to make money, but you're helping the community in terms of health. You know, I mean, if that's not a reason to do it, I don't know what other reason. If that doesn't make you feel good, it's the same when I help a student achieve their goals. It's the same goal.
Yes.
That I reversed my type 2 diabetes, or I got that under control. I got my numbers better. I've lost weight. I feel better about myself because what's between the 2 years? The biggest thing I like about running, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Well,
You feel great, right?
Let me build on that.
Yeah.
For the first time, my daughter and I started doing something together.
Yep.
Because of those shoes, my spouse and I are spending time after dinner together. It isn't even maybe about the blood pressure coming down,
Right.
or the resting heart rate being in an improved state. It's about sometimes just relationships that you already know are special, but now there's a connection that quite frankly wouldn't have happened if somebody wouldn't have leaned in to a conversation they might have otherwise never had.
It's and to that point, you never know the impact that you have when people are watching you.
Yeah.
Our store is right across the street from Westlake High School, which we're actually opening a recording studio there tomorrow. But I'm also working with the track and field booster. So the other day I was over there with the principal, and somebody came in and they were talking about the store, and out of the blue, he was, talking to the principal, and he said, "I started running because of him." And he never told me that before, that he started running because of watching me post my runs on social media and just by us having a conversation. Next thing I know, he's running 5Ks now, training for his first 10K. So the impact, and you have to be an example. Nobody would buy from us if they didn't see me running and they didn't know that I was passionate about that. So
That's a good point.
So you have to. It has to be a lived lifestyle. Dawn doesn't run, but we walk, get up and make it a point to go and walk through 5 or 6 miles every weekend, and because we work from the home.
Yep.
So we get up and I take her and we go and walk. So it's and that's the beauty part about it. Because I run, that doesn't mean she has to run.
That's right.
And that's what we want people to see.
Yep.
We want people to see that we're an average couple that so happen to be in this situation. So we look no different than anybody else that's in our community. We own this store, and we want people to come in and see themselves in us.
That's right.
Whether you walk or whether you run. When you walk in our store reflects the community.
Yep. Yeah. I know one thing, I gotta say this, and being a professor of finance, so I got a little bit of time, I know we're up against it. Let's talk about the business model. Let's talk about the economics of running a retail store, the franchise system model, because I've worked in that space before. What are your challenges, babe? But both of you, however you want to do it, but what are your challenges from a financial sense? Because I know a lot of our students are the people that watch us. Most students I deal with, they have this great idea about a business, right? It is great. And I say, okay, what are your numbers? We'll figure it out. No, we're not going to figure it out. You said you wrote your business plan, but you also said I had to make sure my numbers make sense with the SBA. like you said, you've gone through, you basically said, if I'm gonna grow my business, I need to go through a franchise model, makes it more efficient. So can you guys just expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll let you start. Then I
So,
can-
okay, yeah, so I'll start, and there's two things, Professor, that you mentioned, it's kind of, there's retail, there's the business model there, and there's the model that's around franchising, or what we call our Peach Partner program. If we start with retail, and those who are familiar with retail, there are a variety of ways to get there. If we look at the difference between our retail, where a vast majority of our products we're buying at wholesale. We're not Lulu, right? We don't control our production. Now, we do have a trademark goods section that is product that we have, maybe a little bit more latitude in our margins. We do own our own screen printing and embroidery operation in Ackworth, so we can control some of our costs. But for the most part, we're buying.
When I walk in your store, those are the t-shirts with the logo and stuff that you're
That's
talking about?
exactly right. I mean,
Okay.
I could, kind of disrobe myself a little bit and just show all kinds of gear that we're either working on or that we've sold in the past. But yes, that's exactly right. But for the most part, when people think of Big Peach, they think about, that's where I bought my pair of Nikes. That's where I bought my pair of Hokas. I know I can get Adidas there, or whatever brand it is that you're interested in. So we're buying at wholesale, which is going to absorb a huge percentage of whatever dollar it is that comes in through the register. After that, we look at our biggest operating expense by far is payroll. We talked about COVID already, the acceleration of wages since COVID especially, but payroll has always been important. One of the things that's bothered me for as long as I've been in retail is oftentimes it's not considered a career, right? It's awesome when you're in college and you need some extra work because you can pick up weekend shifts or you can work after classes are over, but nobody thinks about a career in retail. At the end of the day, we're striving right now, we're at 20 to 21%. I would like to be a retailer, a full service, full retail retailer, that 25% of our total revenue goes back to payroll. Whether it's in, headquarters staff, people who are doing marketing, operations, procurement, or whether it's our staff that, what we call our guest advocates, interacting with those people who come in through those doors and hope to make a purchase from us. Behind that, all of our real estate is leased currently, and that includes our Peach Partners. If we look at the arrangement that Dawn and Rick have, it is a leased real estate. Just saying very candidly, when you're buying at wholesale, when you want to pay your people well, when you are in full service, full retail, you're not going to be able to spend more than 12% of your total revenue in your occupancy cost over an extended period of time. So you got to manage your real estate. All of a sudden, these local relationships matter a ton. I think we've got the sexiest space in South Fulton. Candidly, I think we are in the right place. South Fulton is a less expensive market on a per square foot basis than if we were in Buckhead, or what we're paying in Brookhaven or Midtown, or even in Swanee or Decatur. So I love the fact that we're in an emerging market where
Right.
that cost per square foot is a little bit less. Gives us this awesome opportunity, because if there's a great opportunity and our sales per square foot now are much bigger than what they are somewhere else, we can reinvest against our team. We can reinvest back in to the community. But for retailers these days, they've got to understand their wholesale margins. They've got to determine what payroll not only is, but could be, and they've got to keep their real estate. And then everything else, just, all the ankle biters, whether it's the benefits, whether it's the utilities, whether it's the marketing that you're going to put into the community. So, those are still just as much present in our business as what they would be if we were, an insurance agency, or if we had, production or manufacturing. The thing that we've done for our Peach Partner program, and for me personally, it's not so much about, we've never taken a dollar of private equity. We're not a joint venture. There's no money that's been invested other than we have done some institutional loans that, we've paid back on time or ahead of term every single time. But knowing that we didn't want to go out there and grab a bunch of money and give up a percentage of ownership, the idea might have been, let's do franchising because it helps keep those costs to a minimum, or we could lower them even compared to what they were a year ago or a decade ago.
Right.
The bigger thing, owner-operator works in a full-service, full retail environment. Doesn't mean that you have to be there 100% of the time. But for somebody to know that it's like, the person standing behind this sale is somebody I could connect with. Maybe it's just through email, but I can connect with the owner. I can connect with the owners, Rick and Dawn. Heck, they could connect with me as well, but at the same time, owner-operator in full retail, full service just works. So even more so than the finances was we can deliver a better product when the owners are also involved with the operation. And let's be honest here. We're talking about the first black-owned running store in the state of Georgia. We've already mentioned there are less than a handful in these terrific United States of ours. Mike Cosentino, Big Peach, without these two, no matter how opportune South Fulton might be, we couldn't do it, right? We just couldn't do it. We don't know the ins and outs. He talks about Westlake High School and who the boosters are and the fact that they're opening the. We could have a great brand proposition. Certainly, we have an awesome assortment of products, but showing up in South Fulton without Rick and Dawn is not showing up at all. So that's a little bit of the economics. I don't know. Here's the thing I'll joke about with the two of them here. We're terrible business people in this manner. I took one of my best customers, and now he gets all this stuff for free. She was already probably concerned about how much she'd spend at Big Peach Running Company, and she's figured out a way to spend more than that. And he's not even buying his shoes anymore. So the three of us perhaps aren't all that good at business in general, because the whole thing is lopsided.
That's a benefit of being a business. You get your shoes for free now, right?
Yeah, but as a just being a new venture for Dawn and I, and we've always, and we joke between each other, we've always been financially savvy and also conscious of the money that comes to the house. Her so more than me, but you have to have good credit. I mean, I wouldn't even have this conversation with Mike if he didn't have good credit. It's so important, and you see a lot of people that are going into business, and they're trying to get loans, and they have a great idea, but you got to start with your credit, with your personal finances first. You got to have that stuff, and Dawn can talk more about that, but that's where we had to start. We had to say, okay, what's the credit score looking like, Dawn?
We actually have a little thing that we do. We both have the app, Experian, and we joke about it has a contest for us. Whose credit score is the biggest? So every month we look at, okay, I'm here. Where are you?
Yeah.
So it's fun for us, but it's very imperative that your credit is on point.
Yeah.
So
we had to make sure, and I spent countless days and nights putting that business plan together to make sure. Before even though that's my friend, that's my brother, but I had to make sure that my business was right.
That's right.
Before we even
It's still
started.
business. At the end of the day,
It's still a business.
It's still business.
But what I love about Mike and the Big Peach family, the support is there. This is a solid brand, and if I was going to make an investment in a brand, it was going to be with a solid brand, a well-respected brand in the community. People know Big Peach. If they don't know Big Peach, they've heard of it, they've seen it. So the support. And I couldn't have opened this store without Mike.
Because there's some competition out there.
There is
you got New Balance, you got Fleet. The Deputies. That's old school, So when you went into the market, that was bold.
Well, and again, it goes back to the service proposition, but I don't want this just to be a big love-in, but let me mention this, given the primary audience for this conversation. It's so easy to think you know the answer.
That's right.
Or worse, be afraid to ask the question because you've now told someone, maybe a bunch of someone's, you're going to start a business. You've got an idea, and you feel like you've got to have it all figured out. I can tell you, one of the best things I decided from the onset is ask questions all the time. And that's all they have done. They have been the questions that Dawn asks, it's so funny. She's just like, well, I'm just assuming you're going to tell me the answer. But when Rick says she's the financial person, she'll be, tell me the margin, tell me what. And if somebody's out there thinking, well, I'll just get all the answers myself, or I'm sure I can figure it out along the way, that's almost not necessary anymore. You know somebody who has the answer, ask the question. Maybe every once in a while it is a dumb question. Maybe every once in a while somebody does think a little bit less of you. But I can tell you the alternative is far, far worse if you don't ask those questions and you don't get the information soon enough. So, I mean,
and using the resources. Like I said, just by me just on the internet, I found out about, small business administration. Talked to Mr. Lamar. Told him what my plans were, what I wanted to do. He was super excited because he's a runner. Yeah. He also owned the franchise, so
there's a lot of connections.
It was from the start. It was like, man, this is the perfect opportunity, and me and Mike and Dawn would emails, phone calls, back and forth, to make sure that plan was exactly the way that it needed to be before we submitted it to the
Well, and
bank.
let me add to that plug,
Yes.
because I wasn't familiar with the Small Business Development Center. Rick and Don brought that to me. We had preferred lenders. We're familiar, of course, with the SBA, but I mean, just a huge shout out. You already mentioned Donald Lamar, but I mean, since we're here at Morehouse, the SBDC here was a huge instructional
Yep.
for not just Rick and Don, for me. And when he says we had to know our numbers, I mean, the template, the spreadsheet, somebody who, especially retail or fashion, doesn't look into the SBDC would be silly, in my opinion, based on the caliber of that spreadsheet alone.
Yeah, I mean, Donald laid that thing out for us, and
That's
the
good.
information that we received was just, it was invaluable. Yeah, Mike did, yeah, we had the lender, but when we sent that stuff over to them, it was tight.
It was tight.
It was tight. Guy hit me back and said, man, this is the best business plan that I've seen.
Yep.
And that was a testament to all the work.
Yep.
You know, and it was good that we had numbers that we could build from because of the history that Big Peach had.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when Don and I was talking with our bank, it was like, we don't see any reason why we shouldn't give you guys a loan. Like this,
Numbers talk.
the numbers look, and every time we needed something, we called Mike and we had it and we sent it to the bank, and the bank was like, well, I didn't expect for you guys to get this back. Now, there are a lot of franchises across this country. A lot of CEOs that do franchise, and a lot of people who franchisees never, that I'm learning, never really have a conversation with the founder of the company. This is no fluff. We're on the phone with the bank, and I said, well, let me get Mike on the phone. Diane, she was like, I've never talked to a founder of an organization. She said, this is the first for me. So, you know, when I say this has been one of the greatest experiences that Dawn and I have had,
Yes.
it really has
I believe-
been.
I believe- I feel it,
you
yeah.
know, it is what it is.
That's right.
That's just what it is. And I think for students who really want to be in whatever industry you go into, please find your mentor. Find someone that's in that industry that you can rely on. I spent 37 years in the entertainment industry because of my mentors, because they gave me sound advice, and I was able to make a great living in that. Now, my mentor is now also my business partner. You know, so it's important that you allow yourself to be open and honest and say, hey, I know I can do it, but I need some help. Whether you're a graduate, whether you just got to college, whether you didn't go to college, whatever you set your mind to, you can make it. You can make it happen, and that's real.
That's right.
And you hear people say that all the time, but it's true. Surround yourself with great people, great minds. And like Mike said, I haven't figured all out. I mean, Mike and I, we have conversations about different things, and sometimes I say something, he's like, I never thought of that. Or he'll say something, and I was like, yeah. We're doing some things, working on some stuff the other day, and he doesn't think that he's a very creative guy, but he is. And it was a joke, but I told Dawn when we got off the phone, I was like, Mike be holding back. I said he holding back. But that's the relationship that we have.
You got anything else?
I loved the conversation that we had today, guys. It was extremely insightful, especially to the young entrepreneurs out there who are thinking of starting a business, and also just the health aspect as well, and just how important that is, not only within the community, especially in the Black community. Do you guys have any further insights you'd love to share? Maybe some final remarks about some advice to our listeners?
Yeah, I always love to lead, especially with our young people, with this. I don't care what you're doing, how successful you get, always go back into the community. It's super important that our young people see us, not just, when we are at the height of our careers and things, but just now, seeing the process, seeing you go from A to B to get to that level. Because, yeah, it's good to see, guys when they become successful, but what about the journey?
That's right.
Sharing the journey,
That's right.
giving back, going into these communities and talking to our young brothers and sisters and making sure that they understand that, hey, I'm not there yet, but I'm on my way, and I want you to see the process. And that's a lot of times, we don't see the process.
Yep.
We just see the end results.
It's A, C, but we don't know anything about the B part.
No, we don't.
And I think the B part is
That's the
really,
most important part.
The journey is the most exciting thing. I don't know about you, when you finish that run, it's like, I finished run, you feel good because you're done. At least I do. I don't know about y'all, I do. But then I think about something, I actually put some miles into that. And I think about the journey. I never think about when I started to fit. I think about all the things I saw, all the things I was thinking about and stuff like that. But I really appreciate this. I know William feels the same way. I appreciate you taking time. I know you guys are busy. Donnie, I know you're busy crunching those numbers. I appreciate you talking about the numbers, but one thing I do appreciate, because I get on my students about this, and they're going to hear it, and they're going to say, yep, there he goes again. You talk about margins. I don't care what the numbers are, I don't care what the dollar number, give me the margins, because I know if my margins are improving, my business is improving. And I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'm glad you talked about that, and I appreciate the candid conversation. So that's all I got.
And we appreciate you guys having us.
Well, I'm happy to be here, because I know we asked a lot of people to come, and it's like,
Thank you so much.
But you guys were eager to do it, and I reached out to you like that.
We appreciate you doing so.
I can tell you now, I'm gonna have to travel a little bit to support you, and I'm gonna do that, because I buy my shoes 2 or 3 times a year, so having said that, yeah, I'm excited about it, I really am. So
Thanks.
I wish
Thank
you
you.
guys all the luck, and you don't need luck, you're gonna be fine, so.
Well, and you mentioned traveling to do it. Maybe this is predictable, but come see us in Sandtown Crossing in South Fulton. We anticipate that we'll be open by mid-December in 2024, and would certainly love to see you and lots of others. In the meantime, bigpeachrunningco.com is our website, and the last thing that I'll say is hopefully you can sense this, but alongside the margins, think about how much margin you have in the fun.
Yep.
In what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
working with these two as well as the lifestyle that we serve, but no matter what you're doing, make sure there's plenty of margin for fun.
No, I agree with that. Every time I've gone to your stores, I'm gonna plug you up. I don't care. We'll plug you up. Every time I've gone to your stores, the customer service has been spot on. I've switched brands several times, and I just want every time I leave there, I feel like it's money well spent. And I never think about what I'm spending. I think about the customer service. And you're right, it's about customer service. And so I'm gonna do something I've never done, and I'm gonna make Big Peach the official running company of the MBA podcast. There you go.
All right, thank you. So we're gonna have to get the crew a pair of shoes here. How about that?
That's what I'm kind of asking for.
There we go. I think we can
There
make
you
that
go.
happen.
We'll get sizes.
Thank you much.
No, thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode of MBA Unplugged. Please make sure to like, share, and comment. I hope you guys gained some very, very valuable insights from our guest today. Have a good one.
Good.